Right now, there is a gorilla sitting in a forest somewhere, and it is eating. It has been eating for roughly 6 hours today. It will eat for 2 more. Raw leaves, raw fruit, raw stems. Constantly, almost without stopping. And that gorilla shares about 98% of your DNA. So why aren't you doing the same thing? Why do you eat 2, maybe 3 times a day in under an hour and somehow have energy left over to watch videos about gorillas? The answer is not willpower. It's not culture. It's not civilization. It's something your ancestors discovered somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago on a dark African plain, probably by accident. And when it happened, it didn't just change what humans ate. It restructured human anatomy. It rewired the human brain. It made us, us. And without it, you and I don't exist. Here is a number most people have never thought about. A chimpanzee, our closest living relative, spends approximately 48% of its waking life eating. Nearly half of every single day, just chewing. Constantly moving food from hand to mouth. This is not laziness or gluttony, it is a biological necessity. Raw plant food is dense in fiber and brutally difficult to digest. You have to eat enormous quantities of it to extract enough calories to keep a large primate alive. And most of that time is chewing, because raw food is tough. A single piece of raw goat meat requires more than twice the chewing force of cooked meat. Wild tubers, the kind our ancestors depended on, can be almost as hard as wood before you apply heat to them. Raw food does not give itself up easily. You have to fight it, bite by bite, for hours. Now think about what that means for our ancestors. If they were running on a purely raw diet, they were spending the majority of every day just eating. They had massive guts to process it all, enormous jaws and grinding molars. Digestive systems that dwarfed their brains in terms of energy consumption. They were powerful, but they were slow. They looked almost nothing like us. And then something changed everything. In 1999, a Harvard primatologist named Richard Wrangham published a hypothesis that the scientific community largely dismissed. His claim was simple and radical. Cooking didn't come after the human brain got bigger. Cooking made the human brain get bigger. Here's why the math works. The human brain is extraordinarily expensive. It makes up roughly 2% of your body weight. It consumes approximately 20% of your total energy. Every hour of every day, asleep or awake, thinking hard or doing absolutely nothing. That is a staggering metabolic bill to maintain. And at some point in human evolution, that bill started going up fast. Between 2 million and 800,000 years ago, the hominid brain nearly tripled in size. That is one of the fastest evolutionary changes of any organ in any species ever recorded. 3 times the brain in less than 2 million years. Geologically, that is almost instantaneous. So where did all that extra energy come from? Because here is the problem. You cannot grow a bigger brain without fueling it. And raw food, even eaten constantly, may simply not have been enough to pay that bill. Wrangham's answer was fire. Cooking food does something remarkable that we almost never think about. It pre-digests it for you. Heat breaks down complex molecules before they ever reach your stomach. Starches gelatinize. Proteins unfold. Muscle fibers soften. The result is that your body extracts dramatically more calories from the same amount of food in dramatically less time. Studies comparing cooked versus raw diets show that cooking increases caloric yield from meat by roughly 30 to 40%. Tubers go from near indigestible to one of the most efficient energy sources available. Your gut does not have to work nearly as hard, which means over thousands of generations, it can shrink, and it did. When you compare human anatomy to other great apes, something strange becomes obvious immediately. We have tiny guts relative to our body size. Our colons are shorter, our stomachs are smaller, our teeth and jaws are dramatically weaker. By every physical measure, the human digestive system is underpowered for a raw food diet, which is exactly the point. As cooking reduced the digestive burden, the body stopped investing energy in a massive gut. Maintaining large digestive organs is expensive. Energy that was going to the gut became available for something else, the brain. This is called the expensive tissue hypothesis, first proposed by Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler in 1995. As gut size decreased in our ancestors, brain size increased, almost in lockstep. The energy budget shifted, resources moved upward, and the archaeological record shows exactly when this started to happen. Around 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus appears. And Homo erectus is different from everything that came before. Smaller teeth, smaller gut, bigger brain, longer legs, a body built for efficiency rather than raw digestion, a body, frankly, that is beginning to look like ours. The oldest confirmed evidence of controlled fire at a hominid site dates to roughly 780,000 years ago, at a site called Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel. Burned seeds, heated plant remains, deliberately charred wood, the earliest kitchen we have ever found. But the anatomy suggests the relationship between fire and our ancestors goes back further than the physical evidence we currently have. Maybe much further. The bones were changing before we have proof of the fires, which may simply mean the fires burned and the evidence didn't survive. Here is the part that most people miss entirely. Cooking didn't just give us more calories, it gave us something far more valuable: time. A chimpanzee spending 48% of its day eating has very little left for anything else. Social bonding, exploration, problem solving, these get crowded out by the relentless biological demand to chew. But when you cook food, you eat faster, you eat less often. You free up enormous stretches of the day that did not exist before. And what did early humans do with that time? They used it. They made more sophisticated tools. They ranged further. They developed richer social bonds. They started to plan, to remember, to imagine things that hadn't happened yet. But cooking around a fire may have done something else too. Something anthropologists are only beginning to take seriously. It may have created the first social institution in human history. Think about what a fire does at night. It provides warmth. It provides protection from predators. But it also creates a gathering point, a place where a group sits together every single evening doing the same thing, sharing food, looking at the same light, talking. Some researchers now believe that the communal campfire was where human culture was actually born, where stories were first told in any meaningful sense, where the social rules of who shares with whom and who gets what and what we owe each other were first negotiated out loud. The campfire wasn't just cooking technology, it was the first classroom, the first parliament, the first place where human beings stopped simply being animals that lived in groups and started being something else, a species with memory, with stories, with culture that could outlast any individual life. But here is what makes this story genuinely uncomfortable, because fire and cooking didn't just give us things, they took things away, things we can no longer survive without. Once cooking became central to human survival, raw food became a problem. Not because it is inherently toxic, but because a digestive system built around cooked food struggles badly with the raw version. Studies of modern humans who attempt strict raw food diets consistently find the same result. Most people cannot maintain healthy body weight over the long term. Most women on fully raw diets stop menstruating. The caloric yield simply is not enough to sustain a body that evolved expecting processed calories. We became dependent, completely, permanently, and that dependency has never gone away. It goes deeper than digestion. Cooking requires fire. Fire requires fuel. Managing fuel requires territory, planning, and knowledge that has to be taught and learned. For the first time in hominin history, our ancestors were tied to a resource they could not simply walk away from. The management of fire, keeping it alive through the night, knowing how to start it, when to move it, how to feed it without smothering it, became survival-critical knowledge. And survival-critical knowledge has to be passed on, which means cooking didn't just feed the brain. It created the conditions that made teaching, and therefore culture, not just possible, but necessary for survival. We didn't choose to become a cultural species. Cooking made us one. So here's where this leaves you. Every time you cook something, you are doing something your species has been doing for somewhere between 800,000 and 2 million years. You are running a process so fundamental to what we are that your body literally cannot function properly without it. The kitchen is not a modern invention. It is the oldest room in human history. The meal is not a social ritual we invented to pass the time. It is the foundation on which everything else was built. The bigger brain, the freed up hours, the language, the stories, the culture. The fact that you are sitting here right now watching a video about the history of fire is itself a product of fire. You are, in the most literal possible sense, a cooked creature. Your brain runs on processed food. It always has. And that has been true for so long that the raw version of you, the one that would have spent 6 hours today just eating that version, is essentially gone. You cannot go back. The biology won't allow it. Somewhere in the deep past, around a fire that somebody managed to keep burning through the night, the first version of you looked into the flames, and without knowing it, looked forward at everything that was coming. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing.